I asked TikTok to pick out for me the 10 most incredible routes in New York. You definitely didn't know about this place, but this spot is truly special. Wow, I certainly wasn't expecting anything like this. So don't always trust Google. Oh my god, this is amazing. I take back everything I said. Hello everyone, welcome to New York. This is my second episode from this city, but this one won't feature classic tourist routes because New York isn't just a sprawling metropolis, but also a city of many layers. Beyond the skyscrapers, you'll find dozens, if not hundreds, of amazing cultural spaces here. So today we'll visit rare galleries, historic mansions, and little-known parks. All in all, it'll be great. Make sure to subscribe, like, and let's go explore the city. On this trip to New York, I finally managed to close a long-standing gestalt. This is my fourth visit to this city, and I've always dreamed of experiencing it in all four seasons. So the first time I came was in summer, then for Christmas last year I filmed an episode here in spring, and now finally I've arrived in fall. Alright, now we can truly get to know the city from all four sides. But as my local relatives told me, fall in New York isn't just one single season of fall. Instead, they divide fall into three distinct sub-seasons. There's early fall in September when it's still very hot, and essentially, it's like a late summer, an Indian summer. Then they have their Indian spring, I believe that's what they call it, when it's pleasantly warm throughout the day, but then it gets quite cool in the evening. And now, for them, the season of late fall has already arrived when the weather is at its absolute worst. Heavy rains are pouring, the leaves have almost entirely fallen, but there are still a few remaining. But nothing, of course, is more pleasant than coming here in early fall. I believe this is the most wonderful time to be here because in summer it's extremely hot, but in September it's usually still quite pleasant. We're now going with you to a very interesting and quite rare spot, but let's discuss everything in order. Friends, it might seem that behind this tall fence and these thick bushes, there is an absolutely invisible building, but this structure in reality possesses a rather substantial cultural context. It is known as the Mount Vernon Hotel. And this building was opened in the year 1799. It was constructed for a very influential businessman of that era, and it was built to serve as his country residence. Can you even imagine? We are currently in Midtown, essentially the very heart of Manhattan. And yes, at that time, this was considered New York's countryside, and around the 1830s, a hotel was opened here for New Yorkers who wanted to come out of the city and relax, spend some time, see people, be seen, drink lemonade, and go boating. And now we'll go inside. I don't know if filming is allowed in there, but I hope it will be interesting. I found this place unusual because it was specifically a day-use hotel, so people didn't stay here overnight. In the mid-1820s, New York was bustling with an influx of immigrants and a trade boom after the opening of the Erie Canal. The city is sharply divided into two extremes. On one hand, you have poor immigrants and farmers struggling at the very bottom of the social ladder, and on the other, the established elite residing comfortably at the top. The middle class, however, is only just beginning to take shape. Therefore, to arrive here on a weekday, having set aside all your responsibilities, was a clear statement. I am wealthy enough to afford this luxury. It served as a distinct symbol of one's achievement and prosperity. The hotel admission cost $1 for a day of entertainment. This was roughly what an average worker in New York earned in a single day. Young women were brought here essentially for a marriage market. They would gracefully play the piano, recite poetry, and embroider, all to demonstrate their talents and refined manners to prospective middle-class suitors. For the newly rich, those from humble origins who built their wealth through trade, such a visit cemented their status, helped them climb the social ladder, and here the American dream of upward mobility was truly born. I don't like the New York City subway system. The main reason I dislike it is that if you happen to be traveling along one particular line and then, for whatever reason, you decide that you need to transfer to a completely different one, you are often required to first exit the station, go all the way out onto the street, and then walk to the specific entrance of the line you actually need. So you are unable to complete this task while you're actually inside the subway, and therefore you will be forced to make payments on multiple separate occasions. I was just riding on the blue line, I believe, then I realized I didn't want to go where I had originally planned. And in order to transfer to a different line, to a new route, I had to exit the subway system. And each time I did that, I ended up paying $2.90. So basically, a single trip in essence ended up costing me almost $6. And as Americans would say, that's a bummer. I mean, it's definitely quite a letdown, you know. But I really like this kind of sports ground right in the city center, which brightens up the autumn blues with its vibrant colors. If I were putting together a review of the top 10 must see places to experience in New York City, I would most certainly make sure to include Chelsea Market. It truly is my absolute favorite spot right here. This is my fourth time in New York, and every single time I make sure to come here for a snack. But I won't do a detailed review because in my previous New York video I already talked about it. Still, we'll pop in again and try something delicious. At Chelsea Market, besides the food market, there's also a market with clothes, accessories, and various cool items. Here, you can buy unusual souvenirs to take home. After my very unsuccessful visit to an interactive museum in Boston, if you haven't seen that episode, check it out. I'll leave a link. I thought I wouldn't be going to any more immersive shows for a while. But here in New York, a new one has just opened, and of course, immersive exhibitions are gaining popularity these days, so I decided to give this museum a chance after all. Because online it looked much more interesting and grander, so that's why we'll now see together if it's truly worth coming here. It honestly feels like I have stepped right into some kind of a video game because everything here is just so incredibly interactive. It really just doesn't even compare with the museum in Boston, of course. Everything here is easily 2 or 3 levels above anything else I've seen. Well, what can I say? New York truly is the center of the cultural capital of the whole world. There's a special station right over here where you are able to scan your very own drawing, and then they will display it for everyone to see on the main screen. They also have this kind of art cafe, and for some reason, the ticket here was more expensive, but nobody scanned my ticket at all. Check out how cool this is. Right here, right next to the High Line, they've opened a new parking facility, and cars drive into these automated boxes, parking themselves on multiple levels. And what's more, this entire street, stretching from the High Line down towards the river, is completely filled with art galleries, a huge number of small private art galleries. So I suppose once I've finished seeing all the major exhibitions and large museums in New York, I'll return here to explore the smaller galleries. What a truly beautiful autumn. Just look at these colors. They're simply like a painting. Everything is so perfectly color coordinated. It's 5 degrees in New York. I didn't expect that, of course, but it's no big deal. But today is our second day, and finally, most places in New York opened after the weekend on Monday, and now I'm heading to a newly opened spot. It's a free, and mind you, a free gallery for New York. That's a huge rarity, which is located in an old mansion. All in all, it's going to be incredibly beautiful there. The Levy Gorvy Dayan Gallery came into existence through a significant merger of influential forces in the year 2021. Swiss art dealer Dominique Levy, the highly respected post-war art expert Brett Gorvy, and Israeli curator Amalia Dayan collectively pooled their extensive resources to establish a truly global empire, featuring prominent branches situated in London, Paris, Hong Kong, and New York. Here are gathered treasures of modernism and contemporary art, from Yves Klein and Frank Stella to living legends like Boris Mikhailov. But now, in the fall of 2025, the gallery truly comes alive with memories of a golden decade. The exhibition, Downtown New York in the 80s, transports us back to the 1980s. Basquiat with his raw street graffiti, Haring with his vibrant, bold lines, Schnabel with his shattered plates, Sherman in her iconic roles, and Kunz with his playful provocations, all of this housed in one remarkable building where downtown truly meets uptown. But it's also fascinating to simply step inside and admire the magnificent interiors, perhaps even capture a few memorable, stylish photos. While I'm waiting for my next journey to my next location, I'm just going to pop in for a coffee. And right now, I'm walking along Madison Avenue. It's not too far from Central Park. And here, of course, it's all about such incredible luxury and pure opulence. Many beautiful buildings and boutiques, and of course, it's very pleasant to simply stroll around here. In the English language, there's a specific term for this. It's called window shopping. That's when you just walk around gazing at all the beautiful shop windows, and you don't really purchase anything in particular. But the process itself is very exciting, and of course, New York has so many stylish people. Unfortunately, I can't always capture them on camera. But when I walk around, especially here on these streets, people dress very stylishly. What's particularly striking to me is how many older people dress in such a beautiful style. At Ralph's Coffee, as always, there's a huge line, but this one is truly exceptionally long. Although last time I tried this coffee, it was just average. But I'll try it again, I'll give it a second chance. Okay, I have to admit, I'm taking back everything I said before. This vanilla latte, this one right here, is absolutely incredible. Although the cappuccino I bought from them last time, it was just mediocre. But apparently the syrups they use there, or I don't know what exactly they add, but it makes for a very tasty, rich, and aromatic coffee. So I definitely recommend it. What a wonderfully beautiful day in Central Park. It's so great to be here in all seasons, really. You feel quite different when you're here. The colors are completely different, and the moods and the landscapes and everything around you. The road to my next location leads right through this park, because otherwise I probably wouldn't have come here. You all know Metropolitan Art Museum, but did you ever know that just a short distance from the museum, there's another museum located there, which is actually 70 years older than the Met? And this particular museum, it's called the New York Historical, and it is the very, very first museum right here in New York City. Yes, can you even imagine? The very first. I don't know why, but guidebooks don't mention it and bloggers don't talk about it, but it's a truly underrated place. The museum has been open since 1804, and unlike the Met, which tells the story of the entire world, the New York Historical tells the story of New York City. To begin with, every single day, a free guided tour is offered here, lasting approximately an hour and a half. We began by exploring the paintings that were dedicated to New York City, and then we proceeded to what I considered the most fascinating room, the Tiffany lamp exhibit. This is one of the largest and most complete collections in the world, a gift from collector Egon Neustadt in 1984. But the exhibition is not simply about the beauty of the lamps, it also reveals the forgotten stories of the Tiffany girls, a team of talented female artisans who worked in the glass department of the Tiffany studio in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. At the heart of it all is Clara O'Driscoll, the principal designer, whose letters, discovered in 2005, brought her back to prominence. It was she who conceived of iconic designs such as lamps adorned with lilies or butterflies, meticulously hand-assembling thousands of individual pieces of colored glass. Women earned $35 a week on par with their male designer counterparts, but their significant contributions were often obscured beneath the singular name of Tiffany. These exquisite lamps commanded a substantial fortune, serving as a clear symbol of the refined taste and elevated status of the Gilded Age elite. I broke away from the free tour because these chandeliers are so incredibly beautiful. I love them so much that I simply had to spend about 40 minutes to walk through it all by myself, to see every single piece and every exhibit, and oh, the beauty is truly indescribable. In addition to the Tiffany lamps, the museum also features a curious hall dedicated to various historical periods in the history of the US and New York, from slavery up to September 11th. You can read about graffiti, see works by local sculptors, and even sit at the presidential table to view portraits of all US presidents from Washington to Trump. In addition to its permanent collections, the museum also hosts interesting temporary exhibitions. This time, I was able to see a truly magnificent collection of Indian saris and also to be transported back to the vibrant Black Harlem of the 1920s and 1930s, where I could meet and learn about the most renowned writers, artists, and creative figures of that era. The National History Museum has an absolutely incredible building. We won't be going inside, but I genuinely felt a strong desire to at least give you a sense of its sheer scale and grandeur from the outside. However, given that this particular episode is primarily focused on showcasing some lesser known locations, we won't be making stops at these major, widely popular museums. Nevertheless, I simply cannot adequately convey my profound admiration for truly beautiful architecture. In New York, there exists a place, one that strongly resembles a film about a secret society. But it's not a church, it's not a palace, it's a library which was founded by a prominent banker and gathered under its magnificent roof all the vast treasures of human knowledge, the Morgan Library. An insane, truly unique place, and now you're about to find out exactly why. The place where we have arrived is a personal palace which the famous banker J.P. Morgan built for himself in 1906. Morgan was a truly great collector. However, it's a well-known fact that his obsession with luxurious items sometimes went to such extremes that many of his purchases were never even opened during his lifetime. Indeed, after his death, a great number of sealed packages and shipments were discovered. The magnificent library he assembled is so incredibly impressive today that it's genuinely difficult to tear your eyes away from it. And what truly inspires is not just the book collection itself, but also, taken as a whole, the three magnificent buildings in the Italian Renaissance style: marble, gold, painted ceilings, and 15th century tapestries. Behind all this splendor lies the name of Bella da Costa Green, a name not widely known, the daughter of Harvard's first African-American graduate, who from 1905 until 1948 served as Morgan's personal librarian and later became the library's first director. In an era when Black people were often forbidden from even entering the majority of libraries, Bella, by carefully concealing her true heritage and successfully passing herself off as white, managed to assemble one of the world's most magnificent and renowned private collections. Morgan, remarkably, trusted her with millions of dollars, no questions asked, without a single check. Much later, an entire book was specifically dedicated to this extraordinary woman. However, in addition to its libraries, the museum consistently hosts various art exhibitions, and during my particular visit, I happened upon an exhibition of Renoir. We all recognize Renoir as undoubtedly one of the greatest Impressionist painters. However, the existence of his extensive collection of drawings created with pencil and charcoal remains largely unknown to the public. That's why, right here today, an exhibition has been unveiled, bringing together the complete collection of his artworks executed in various other mediums. And this is the very first exhibition of its kind that has been open to the public since 1921, meaning for all this time, all these works were simply kept in storage and never displayed anywhere. But now, at last, we have this unique opportunity to see them. It's truly very difficult to convey the sheer scale of this place because while it is a library, beyond just books, it also preserves Shakespeare's original manuscripts, Voltaire's personal letters, and Mozart's earliest musical scores. Here's an enormous collection of great individuals and brilliant minds, which you would hardly ever be able to see all together in one single location like this. And what's more, it's not nearly as well known as some of the other more famous museums here in New York. So definitely make a note of this place and be sure to visit it at your very first opportunity. Christmas is already making its presence very much felt, even here in Bryant Park, and probably a little later, a magnificent ice rink will open here. Of course, it's not as popular or as large here as, say, the one in Central Park, but it's one of the city's most important ice rinks. And right now, they're just selling all sorts of sweets, drinks, there's a fair and a carousel. This place is definitely out of season. I always find myself coming here no matter if I'm shooting an episode about unique hidden gems or more common, well known spots. But this particular place is also one of my absolute favorites, just like the Chelsea Market. There's such an authentic New York atmosphere here. Friends, I must confess I misled you because look, the ice rink, it turns out, is already open. It was just impossible for me to see him. He was behind the changing room. Good morning, it's day 3 in New York. And while I'm enjoying my favorite Fellini coffee right here in the beautiful and vibrant Soho district, I want to share with you how I actually put together truly unique itineraries for my travels. I asked TikTok to choose 10 of the coolest routes in New York City for me, and here's what came out of that experiment. I was offered some truly very unusual places because, when I use Google or even ChatGPT, they usually suggest, well, the most common, very typical tourist locations. But on TikTok, there are so many bloggers who actually share some really unique, rare, and unusual routes. And when I asked, it really showed me quite a few unusual places that I had honestly never heard of before. And now we are making our way to one of those very spots. One of the places that was featured in a TikTok compilation is the Merchant's House. It's right behind me. This is practically the only place in New York City that has managed to retain its original appearance, exactly as it was in the 19th century. Yes, indeed, this is one of New York's truly historic buildings, and a single family resided within its walls for an entire 100 years. And when their last daughter, Gertrude, passed away in 1933, this house was transferred to the municipality. It became a museum, and to this very day, nothing there has changed. Everything has remained exactly as it was back then. However, this is no ordinary place. There is a legend that the ghost of Gertrude still resides within this house. And often tours and exhibitions are held here, and visitors and staff of this museum often claim that Gertrude's ghost truly lives there. I'm not sure whether to believe it or not, but let's find out for ourselves whether it's true or not. As I had anticipated, I didn't perceive anything out of the ordinary, although the house certainly looked quite gloomy. But for those times, it was an exemplary home of a wealthy family. What truly astonished me was the fact that there were 4 floors and the servants' rooms were situated right at the very top. When I inquired whether there was an elevator specifically for the staff within the house, I received the answer that an elevator did exist, but it had not been constructed for the use of the personnel. In the 1840s, their daughter Sarah, the youngest child, was involved in a stagecoach accident, severely injuring her back and legs. The family installed a manual lift that was a rarity for that time to take her up to her third-floor bedroom. It was kept a secret. Her disability was considered a disgrace. The elevator was hidden behind a false wall. However, after the Civil War, everything changed. Thousands of veterans returned as cripples, and disability became the norm. For some reason, I always feel a great deal of pity for places like these because no matter how many historical houses I've toured throughout America, they are often found in a very deplorable condition and are desperately in need of funding. They're asking for donations, but I don't know why. It seems that here, the government doesn't help preserve the heritage of historical sites, and everything is financed through donations or some kind of partial assistance comes from the city. Well, I'm not entirely sure how much longer all of this will be able to stand, so it's really important to make sure we get to see everything that still exists and is currently available and accessible for visitors to experience. And with that, we're moving on. Salon 94 is a contemporary art gallery, and what's more, admission is completely free. However, what's particularly noteworthy is that it was established by Jan Greenberg. She's a well-known art dealer, a prominent collector, and the daughter of a wealthy banker. And originally, she opened up the gallery right inside her very own home on 94th Street, and then later on in the year 2002 or in the year 2003, it was relocated to the historic mansion where the gallery is currently situated at this very moment. And in actual fact, all of this truly transports us back to that particular era of vibrant salons, to the unbridled freedom enjoyed by artists during the 70s and 60s, Andy Warhol, the legendary Studio 54 Club, and a completely different New York. It's not nearly as historical or conservative as the example we have just seen. I suppose some people might be wondering why I spend so much time walking around galleries and museums. Surely that must be incredibly boring. Well, let's start by saying that the weather in New York is genuinely quite cool, so you can't really go for a walk in the parks. Well, and secondly, I am genuinely convinced that museums and art galleries are not boring in the slightest. Quite the opposite, they are extremely interesting. You can see the multifaceted creativity of people, their expression, their passion, to learn about history, to discover something truly and completely new. And then it helps you to create things in life, and your creativity really starts to develop. And the very last exhibition that we will see today is the Frick Collection Gallery. It is, in essence, a miniature version of Versailles, located right here in the heart of New York. There's certainly no large, luxurious garden there, but an enormous number of works from the Renaissance, the Enlightenment, and the High Renaissance periods anyway. A very famous patron and collector with the rather amusing last name Frick lived here, and he always wanted to turn his own home into a museum. Unfortunately, taking pictures inside the museum was not allowed, so this overview ended up being very brief, but we're going to keep moving forward. This morning, I'm going to be spending my time exploring the Harlem district. This is a neighborhood that I have never ever visited before in my life because for some reason there were always these rumors going around that it was quite a dangerous place to be with very high crime rates. But the truth is that now that I have actually arrived here myself, I realize that it is absolutely not like that at all. It is an incredibly beautiful and very clean neighborhood that features some truly unique and wonderful architecture. And I've actually studied its history. It's quite unique, in fact. The city was originally named after the Dutch city of Harlem, its namesake, from which immigrants arrived in the mid-17th century, and they engaged in farming and cattle breeding here. But eventually, the land and its natural resources became completely exhausted. That's why the Dutch then departed to explore and settle in new places. However, much later, specifically during the 19th century, Jewish people started arriving here in great numbers. This particular area was widely recognized and considered to be a Jewish neighborhood. But by the end of the 19th century, Jews began to relocate to more affluent neighborhoods, and as a result, this land became somewhat neglected. The wooden houses that stood here were already considered dilapidated, and no one wished to reside in them. However, with the dawn of the 20th century and the Great Migration, a large number of African Americans, former slaves from the South, began relocating and establishing themselves here. This was because, in principle, it was inexpensive here. There was affordable housing for them, and so their community began to form. The 1920s and the beginning of the 1930s, Harlem transformed into a place where people would come, let's say, for entertainment because alcohol was strictly prohibited. But in Harlem, speakeasies were opening. These were bars where consuming alcohol, let's say, was implicitly permitted, and sufficient bribes were paid to the police there so they wouldn't carry out raids. Overall, it became quite a well-known place where you could come, have a little drink, and just enjoy yourself. Jazz began to develop here, and communities of people involved in art in its various manifestations started to appear. And all of this led to such a profound revival, a true renaissance for this entire district. Since then, of course, it has certainly experienced many different periods and phases. Yes, there were periods when it provided free social housing, attracting residents who were not always the most fortunate or well-behaved, but later in the 90s and early 2000s, the area certainly underwent significant urban renewal and extensive renovation. It has already become such a prestigious place to live these days, and many white people reside here now, along with a very large Chinese diaspora. But of course, looking back at the history of the area, it has traditionally been known as a predominantly black neighborhood. This is Alexander Hamilton's house. He was essentially the father of the Revolution, a founding father of America, George Washington's right-hand man during America's struggle for independence. And this is the house where, as I've just found out, they offer free tours. Here he lived and worked, and he is, in fact, a truly pivotal figure in American history because essentially this man single-handedly created the entire financial system of America. He was responsible for establishing financial institutions, banks, he created the tax system, and he founded all sorts of government institutions. Overall, he is an extremely well-known and profoundly important historical figure for the United States of America, and, by the way, his likeness is prominently featured on the $10 bill. By the way, not far from Hamilton's own house, there stands another historic residence where George Washington himself once presided. Yes, that's right. During the American Revolution and the struggle for independence, he actually seized this very house and utilized it as his personal headquarters. Today, the house is open for visitors and represents a significant cultural value for the city. The Morris-Jumel Mansion is the oldest surviving house in Manhattan. Its construction dates back to the year 1765. The house boasts 9 meticulously restored rooms, each thoughtfully decorated to reflect the distinct eras of its various owners. The Georgian period, when the Morris family resided there in the 18th century, showcases a symmetrical layout, elegant simplicity, and George Washington's study, where he lived during the 1776 war, complete with an original desk and authentic furniture from that very era. Next, the federal style, an addition from the 1810s. Here we see a columned portico outside, and inside a French salon with luxurious furnishings. And finally, the Empire style emerged when Eliza Jumel resided here in the 19th century. Heavy fabrics, gilding, imperial luxury. This is the room of Aaron Burr, who, as a matter of fact, shot Alexander Hamilton in a duel. And it's interesting that when he and Eliza got married, it was believed that in marriage, what mattered wasn't love, but rather status, social standing, and money. Anyway, Eliza still couldn't live with him for very long, and after just 4 months, she filed for divorce. But since at that time this procedure was quite complicated, divorces were not common and getting divorced was frowned upon, their divorce dragged on for years, and he eventually died on the official day of their divorce. Well, that's an interesting fact. In the house's basement, there's a colonial kitchen with an original hearth and a beehive oven. It's all furnished with authentic period furniture, wallpaper, and carpets. There's also a small museum located right here. You can even experience the aromas and discover what scents were truly popular in the 19th century. The house truly feels like a time machine, from its strict colonial elegance to its opulent French grandeur. Just 5 subway stops from Harlem, you'll find another very interesting place. It's a branch of the Metropolitan Museum called the Met Cloisters. It's like a little corner of European medieval times right here in New York. It was here that Rockefeller once purchased this land, and the decision was made to establish a museum, one that wouldn't evoke the hustle and bustle of New York, but would remain a tranquil corner, a peaceful haven within the large city. That is why it is situated in a park. There are no skyscraper views here. Instead, there's a beautiful view of the river. The museum itself, with its architecture, resembles medieval Europe, certainly not like America at all. And now I'll make my way there because the path is quite a journey through stairs and ascents. Let's see what this museum has to offer. Once you find yourself in the museum, it may feel like you've entered a real medieval castle. Indeed, such architecture can often be found in Europe, but for America, it is something very unusual and unfamiliar. The museum is built around 4 authentic medieval cloisters from France with columns and arches. Three gardens are reconstructed from medieval texts: herbs for medicine, cooking, and magic, fruit trees, and flowers. The museum's main highlights are its stained glass windows, more than 3,000 panels, mostly from France and Germany from the 14th to 15th centuries. The most impressive come from a castle chapel in Austria and a Carmelite church in Boppard on the Rhine. Seven enormous late 15th century tapestries are also major stars of the museum. They are woven from wool, silk, and silver and gold threads with thousands of tiny details and symbolize purity, love, and even the Passion of Christ. The museum also displays many sculptures, books, and interior objects, mostly religious in nature. I think this place is truly underrated. I came out of the museum and was absolutely starving. I was already prepared to just go to some nearby burger joint, but then I suddenly happened to spot this incredibly cute little cafe. It turned out that it had only been open for just about a month, so if you ever happen to find yourselves in Inwood, I truly recommend you come and visit. Here, I honestly think it's one of the best. I wanted to show you Columbia University, but it turns out entry is now only possible with a QR code or by invitation from a student, so you can't get in at all. Although you can go there with a tour, which they hold on weekends, but I only just found that out now. Well, in general, we missed out a little, but I will now show you some other beautiful places which are located not far from here, within easy walking distance. And actually, here's an interesting fact. We're talking a lot about Alexander Hamilton today, and he actually studied at Columbia University. But back then it was known as King's College because in those times the US didn't even exist as a country yet. It was a British colony, and the university itself was named after the king. And so the knowledge that he acquired during his time at the university, he subsequently applied in his professional work, and it was precisely the foundational concepts for the very first United States Constitution that were being formulated even while he was still undergoing his studies in college. This particular institution is a university which is a distinguished member of the Ivy League and also ranks among the top 5 oldest higher education establishments across the entire United States. This is Riverside Church. It is a magnificent neo-Gothic cathedral, widely recognized for having hosted such historically significant figures as Nelson Mandela and Martin Luther King Jr. And while virtually every tourist is well acquainted with St. Patrick's Cathedral on Fifth Avenue, this particular location is not nearly as frequently visited. I didn't manage to get inside the temple itself, unfortunately, only into its entrance area. Sadly, in America, it's a different situation. You can't just walk into a church like we do in Russia at any time to light a candle. There are certain, tourist routes, but most churches are only open during services on weekends, so you won't be able to go inside, but that's fine. But we can admire this absolutely stunning sunset. The color is simply magnificent. And this building here is the General Grant National Memorial. It's the largest mausoleum in North America, and it's interesting that it's not in Washington, but here in New York. This is where the Civil War hero and 18th US president rests. The mausoleum, unfortunately, is already closed. I thought it was open until 5, but it's only until 4. So don't always trust Google, check the official website. Well, all that's left for me to do now is to make my way to the very last point of our entire journey, and then I will show you a truly beautiful, simply magical evening scene. Friends, thank you for spending this time with me here in New York. Thank you for watching all the way to the very end. I'm moving on now, and I'm saying goodbye to all of you. Until new episodes, until we meet again, please subscribe, hit the like button, leave your comments, and I truly hope you all had a wonderful time. Bye.